I'm an artist in Daylesford. I work in oil paints and I make mono prints. I've been doing it for about 40 years. It's a process where I'm using brushes and fingers and bits of cardboard to apply paint onto a plate. The image on that is transferred onto rag paper, and that becomes the mono print. There's only one print, so it's a special print. Yeah, I love painting. It puts me in a space where I am reflecting on something. I'm involved in the colour of something or the shape of something or a story about that thing or that person. The tip of my loaded brush creates the mark which represents a direct link and response to what I'm looking at. Everything is inspiring, you know. I mean, I look out the window and the wind's blowing those trees around and it's just fantastic. I want to paint it. I look over there and there's some light shining on those leaves and it's just beautiful. I love beauty. I was a kid living in Highton in Geelong. I had a friend, Algis Reptis was his name, and his father was a painter. I used to go and play up at his place. They had a big peppercorn tree. We used to climb up the peppercorn tree. And one day I went inside with Algis to have a look at his house, and I couldn't believe it. The whole corridor down the centre of the house was filled with paintings from floor to ceiling. And every room was filled with paintings. And I thought, God, this is amazing. You know, this is what I want to do. So I realised at the age of 8 that was what I felt that I should do. It's very simple. Yeah, everything's simple. The act of painting, like life itself, is a series of actions that are both pleasurable and painful. As Brett Whiteley once put it, painting is difficult pleasure. I was the first one there from Europe in the 50s. The teachers sort of thought I was a bit of a special kid because I couldn't speak a word of English. For me to communicate to them, I had to do something to get in on the scene, you know. So I'd try to be funny, you know, to crawl around the floor or do something stupid. So I painted, and they loved my paintings. And then I made sculptures from bits and pieces of stuff that I found, and I made little, you know, scenes and things. And so I got applause for that, so I kept doing that. It was a way into a group of people that knew nothing about where I was from or who I was. I was born in Germany, in Kiel, which is right up the north of Germany. Kiel was a place where they made submarines for the Second World War, and most of Kiel was destroyed. There wasn't any housing. We ended up living with about 13 or 14 people in a 2-bedroom house. And I remember we had to move out of there into a pub because there wasn't any room. In the end, my dad, he's pretty impulsive, said, right, okay, we're heading out of here and we can go to Canada, Argentina or Australia. He, being adventurous, you know, we hopped on the ship, you know, went through the Suez Canal. I remember we're on our ship, the Skullbrand, travelling through the Suez Canal. I'm standing on the top deck of the ship looking out over the vast sandy desert. Men wearing turbans walking along on the canal's edge. They wave and my mother encourages me to wave back to them. On the canal next to our ship are a group of narrow longboats carrying fruits and vegetables. From the Suez Canal we travelled southeast, taking several more days to reach Colombo, currently called Sri Lanka. Dad was hanging out for some spicy salami sausage. He decided to jump ship for a day and go looking for some in the area around the dock. My father hadn't a clue that the Indians do not eat pork. After some discussion and argy-bargy with my mother, I was allowed to go on this mission. I got a little frightened of these kids who were coming up right up to us, touching us and hoping to steal whatever we had in our pockets. My father's mission ended when we bought some bananas and returned to the ship. My mother was not happy. Ended up at Port Melbourne. There was a brass band that played God Save the Queen. I didn't know the tune. And then we ended up north of Victoria at the Bunagilla migrant camp. Eventually, Dad got a job at International Harvester in Geelong. The family moved down to Geelong. They built a little shed with another family. The Osewald story starts with my grandfather, Heinrich Osewald. He was my father's stepfather. My father never knew his father because he was an illegitimate child, and my grandfather Heinrich adopted Dad in 1924. Heinrich was known as Henry in Australia. He was born in Ulsnitz. He was also an orphan. My father asked Henry to come to Australia to be grandfather to my brother and I. And when he got here, he got a job as a spray painter at International Harvester in Geelong. He got pretty sick doing that because he couldn't handle the fumes. Henry got a job at a horse stud in Geelong, at St Albans Stud. It's famous for keeping Farlap, the most famous Australian racehorse, because they were afraid that someone was going to poison the horse before the Melbourne Cup. And he helped Dad build a house in Highton, which Dad had designed. Sort of a little butterfly house, a crazy sort of a roof design, which people from all around came to have a look at. He didn't accumulate any money or possessions. I mean, he died with a suitcase of clothes. He was always very kind and generous to me and my brother, and to everybody that knew him. It's my dad's hat. That's the Aussie. I think that's an Aussie, I'm not sure. Belmont High School, the Gordon Institute of Technology, did Diploma of Art and Design, went to the Victoria College of the Arts, did postgraduate diploma, went to the Melbourne State College, did Diploma of Education, taught with the Education Department for a long time, quit them. Before I started seriously working on the artworks, I was a musician. I played in two main bands, Lizard and Kikx. During my 20s, we played at all of the venues around Geelong and in Melbourne at the Crystal Ballroom and the Venue and Bombay Rock. We supported important Australian bands like Midnight Oil and The Angels and Dragon, Jimmy Barnes. We had a record out, went and did a record at Richmond Recorders, which sort of went okay, got played on Triple R, etc. All of a sudden, around about 1984, I got a bit jack of that, as we weren't getting paid enough. And we were putting a lot of effort in. When I was at the Gordon Institute, one of the lecturers there, Klaus Zimmer, he got to know about my music and what I was doing with music, and he was a very intuitive sort of a guy, and he was the person that said to me, listen, how does your art and your music does it correlate? Does it work together? I thought about that for a long time, and there are many parallels to be drawn. How you compose a piece of music or arrange a piece of music. You're adding sounds, you're adding a little drum beat there or a sort of keyboard sound there. Your dynamics are going up and down. They're going crazy 1 minute, they come down to a nice little restful period, and all of that appears in paintings as well. You got this sort of crescendo of shape and colour and things, and you've got these other bits that are restful. You're arranging elements, you're adding colour, you're adding different things. Yeah, rhythm like this. Rhythm's great. I like to dance because painting is a dance. So yeah, you're sort of mixing paint over here, splashing it over there, moving from one space to another, back and forwards. It's a dance. Paint and brushes, canvas. My appreciation of women sort of stemmed from the band days, from dressing as a woman. I had a persona which was called Mandy Macabre. David Bowie was a really important icon of the day, and he made it a lot easier for people like me and others to come out and accept a more feminine side of themselves. That acceptance of femininity was the beginning of me painting women, dressing more like a female. I had a lot of trouble with that because I was working in the education department. Principals hated it. I loved it, I enjoyed it, and it was a lot of fun. If I was born into an era, I'd probably be pretty happy in France with Marie Antoinette as a friend. There you go. I've got a Marie Antoinette wig, and I've got a whole stack of hats. This guy here, he was a bit of a trailblazer at Peter Webb's funeral. Jackie Onassis. Jackie Onassis. I do admire women. I do like to celebrate them in my paintings. I've been taught a lot by women. When I was at high school, my art teacher, she was a folk singer, and she took a shine to me. She would take me down to all the clubs and things that she sang at. So I got a pretty good education in the music scene as well from a woman. Yeah, so women, they're caring. You can't beat the love of a woman. My mother was a very important person. She had a daughter before me, Rosemary, who died after 6 months. She had the trauma of losing a child, and so I got a hell of a lot of attention from her. She was a very loving mother. She was a huge influence when I was a kid. And the way she taught me about aesthetics was really great, because she'd ask me, she would go, "What do you think about that?" what do you think about that vase? What do you reckon? Would that fit over there? I'd be rapt because, I was asked an opinion. I was just a kid, so, to be asked that sort of an opinion at that stage was gave me a sense of worth. She was good at sort of getting things out of me. She was always really well dressed. She used to make her own dresses. She always looked really beautiful. And my father used to admire her, put her on a pedestal, and he used to come over and say, "Well, what do you think about Mum today? She looks pretty good, doesn't she?" And I'd go, "Yes, she does, Dad." She had glassware that she collected porcelain, she made textiles, she made wall hangings. They had a few sheep out the back there, so they would shear the sheep, she would spin the wool, she would make the yarn, spin the yarn, make jumpers for us. Decided I was going to be an artist at the age of 8. Well, there's a long time between the age of 8 and now I'm in sort of my early 30s, so I go to Sydney with my girlfriend and bump into a guy called Kim Benithan. Kim Benithan's an entrepreneur. He's also a gallery owner and, he's just a well-known identity in the art world. Anyway, Kim says to me, "Well, what do you got in that folder of yours you're carrying around?" I said, "Yeah, well, this has been bought by the Art Bank in Sydney." He said, "Oh, right. What do you got there?" And I showed him a whole lot of mono prints that I'd done. And I said, "Look, I'm not that sure about these things because they're a little bit sort of derivative, And he said, "Well, don't worry about that. It's no problem at all, I went to his place in Kew and he said, just put them out there on the lawn, and I placed them all out on his front lawn. And he says, "I'll take the lot. Take the lot. And you can have a show in Adelaide, you can have a show in Sydney." So I ended up having this show with these big names, Australian artists like Charles Blackman and John Coburn and Fred Kress. That was a great thrill to be part of that scene. And I thought, well, this is great. This is I'm finally kind of getting somewhere in the art world. Great. Along comes Neville Jury. He's got this series called New Art Force. It's a big deal because it's a publication. It's about newcomers in the business. And then he put me in another book called Australian Contemporary Art. I thought, you ripper, this is great. I started making the fiberglass pieces.
Through to September 1991, Monty Osewald has produced 6 paintings in oils and resins on fiberglass moulds. The images shown in these works have been derived from a wide range of iconography: Japanese theatre, popular culture, European dance, and from Oswald's experiences in performance and his travels through Thailand. These works attest to Oswald's quest to reconcile disparate elements, to conceive images which represent ideas born of a marriage between the East and the West. Oils and resins are variously sprayed, brushed, dripped and poured freely over the painting surfaces. This technique, along with cutting-in methods to augment control of drawing and design, yields a rich, sumptuous enamelled quality in the works. But it doesn't lack the spontaneity of Jackson Pollock's paintings. The human figure is celebrated in Oswald's paintings. Apart from its embodiment of cultural fusion, East meets West, the characters are costumed and opulently adorned. Their gender is not clearly defined. Nijinsky arabesque awakens us to our pleasure in experiencing the beauty of light reflected on the deep, lustrous surface. We are reminded of icons, jewels, creamy satins, theatrical ambience. The fiberglass moulded panels function as does the proscenium arch in theatre. The attention of the audience, the viewer, is directed precisely to the image, but we share the artist's contention that art is life, and that even the fixed image can escape its physical confines. It can work its way out onto the frame, or we can enter Cranach's gate.
The images and ideas are extensions of a previous exhibition entitled Seeker of the New Frontier. To find one's own frontier or path is really the only reason for painting. In '91, somebody decided to set fire to the factory that I was working in Geelong, and I had an exhibition completed in that factory. All of the fiberglass pieces that I made down in that factory were incinerated. And so the shock of that, I ended up just hanging around for about 12 months. Didn't know what to do next. The fiberglass pieces were pretty amazing, so difficult that I made 6 more of them, and I've still got examples of those here in my studio. They're just too hard to reproduce. So I just started afresh in Dresden. I was in Dresden for about 4 or 5 years. They had given me a studio at the Dresden Academy of Art. Very important phase that I went through. In the end, they gave me a Master of Arts. When Monique and I arrived in Germany, we went straight to West Germany and arrived in Düsseldorf, where I had previously paved the way for a hopeful introduction to German artist A.R. Penck. The Academy suggested that I should come back to see them in 6 weeks' time. Went to the east of Germany from Düsseldorf. We ended up in a little tiny little village in the Czech Republic, which is called Lubinsky Sedlo, and just around the forest in that area we met these nudists and from Dresden, who invited us back to Dresden. From there our lives took a U-turn.
I looked around Dresden, Neustadt, where the effects of the Second World War were poignantly visible. Street rubble strewn everywhere, bombed buildings and churches, crumbling streets, rusted and decaying water drainage infrastructure, trees growing out of rooftop gutters, and bullet holes prominently visible on almost all of the building exteriors. Graffiti was over everything. I was shocked this place was such a mess. The occupying Russians had done nothing for Dresden during the 50 years of their occupation. But somehow this apocalyptic, dystopian-looking place felt right for me. It reminded me of my birth city in Kiel in the north of Germany when I was a young boy. This place, Neustadt, felt as if I had found my roots. From there I ventured down to the Altstadt, the old Dresden city, to have a look down along the river. There were steamboats down there parked right outside the majestic Hochschule für Bildende Kunst. That's the Academy of Fine Arts. This is where I met Professor Siegfried Klotz, who asked why I was here. He looked at my folio, put his hand on my shoulder and led me up the spiralling staircase through to the first floor of the classic Baroque monster of a building. I was confronted with a massive room with glass windows along the entire northern aspect, looking out at the best view of the Elbe River one could ever imagine. When Siegfried interrupted my train of thought and said, "Here is where you can paint. Consider yourself a guest of the Academy of the Art in Dresden."
He was a really, really good landscape and portrait painter, so I sort of thought, well, okay, I'll learn something from this guy. Klotz introduced me to a great artist, a favourite of his, Horst Leifer, who came originally from the south of Germany, but later on, after he lost his job at the Academy, he was also a lecturer there. A great painter of landscape and of people. Hugely impressed with Leifer's work when I went to see an exhibition of his. I just love the spontaneity and freshness of his work. I was invited to a symposium of ceramic artists from Russia and from America and Korea. It was a tiny little village in the forest called Hinter Hamsdorf. We made porcelain objects. I made this head of Monique, who was my partner at the time. This angel object here that was sort of based on angels that you find on Dresden or in Prague. And I had this friend of mine, Bernd Hahn, had a studio in Kleinschachwitz which he loaned to me whilst he was in Italy. I ended up painting this and quite a few other paintings on a large roll of paper. It's a shiny, non-absorbent paper, so paint has nowhere to go. It has to drip down, so there's lots of dripping, which is sort of the feature of this. He taught me to be, just to slash out and do things without thinking too much and just making things happen. And so I sort of developed this kind of instantaneous splash slash kind of approach that's still prevalent today. I work pretty fast. There's not a lot of editing goes on as I'm painting. I'm looking at the subject, I'm looking at the model, and I'm mixing paints that approximate what I'm looking at. Put that down onto this metal plate. The shape that appears there sort of is fine. I'll just accept that. And then I'll go and mix another colour for another area. Repeat that hundreds of times. There are plenty of places on the painting on the plate that hasn't got any paint on it whatsoever. And when the paper transfer is made from the plate, they become sort of negative or positive spaces. I end up with a fairly kind of spontaneous mash-up of areas of colour and shape that approximate what I'm looking at. It's definitely not photorealist. It's more of an expression or an impression of what I'm looking at. The painting is done. You look at it and go, oh, okay, well, you know, if I mess with this any longer, it'll interfere with its freshness. Take it down to the printing press, and if it doesn't work, and this often happens, it doesn't work. No, I'll just do another one. Simple. I don't really overthink anything. In the 80s, the really early stuff, I was sort of illustrating stories that people told me. So I'd sort of illustrate outrageous things that I heard about. Since that time, things are just about what's in front of me, basically. Where I am, places I go to, people I meet. Some people I just like to paint because I like the look of them, or because there's something about them that is attractive. I went and lived in Samoa for 3 months. So when I got back from Samoa, it was kind of natural to just, you know, think back to the lazy days that I had on the beach down there, and, you know, the people that I met there. And I did a series on Daylesford. I had my German friends come over and visit me in 2012, and we went to the McDonald Ranges. I did a series on McDonald Ranges. All of those pictures, mostly monoprints, are done pretty instantaneously, and they're not. None of them are overthought. They're kind of, they're all approximations of things remembered. It's a diary, it's a visual diary, basically. The whole thing's just a story about where I am in life. Ended up buying this house in Daylesford in 2009. This is the Daylesford look. Gotta look like that in Daylesford.
When you're in town and you're messing around, make sure you come see me. Cause I know a dance floor needs some messing, they party way too clean. When you're in town and you're messing around, make sure you come see me. Cause I know a dance floor needs some messing, they party way too clean. Have a little freestyle here at the Palace. Woo! Yeah.
So I'm trying to establish my studio here. So I'm doing this burlesque series of a burlesque performer called Mini Mayhem. I'm going to call it In the Flesh. I'm painting Mini live.
think you are the only one who has this thought of mine, and you will only suffer. I dream.
Running on zero road in the south of France. A lady in a beret said she'd like to dance.
He's a Russian guy. He looks like this. Does Russian dance. So one thing led to another, you know. You just let things happen. That's one of the great things about life, is that you just go with the flow. Things happen all the time, and you don't know why or how. I'm just one of these personalities that wants to get things done and wants to do things really well. Things happen over a lifetime. And these things happen gradually. It's a huge road, it's a windy road, and there are all sorts of ways of doing things, and you just sort of make decisions about things, and you've got to actually make things happen for yourself. You will them, and you're determined to do these things. I'd like to write a book about my family. I also like to do a whole book about the oeuvre of my painting life. This guy is sort of a bit of a sailor or something. Could be from anywhere. Sell your car? What's going on? I sell their car.